In every corner of the world, there are secrets, stories that have always been beyond understanding. But we have come to uncover those secrets where darkness never ends. Welcome to Dynamic Dark. Welcome to a brand new horror episode. Welcome to episode 20. I'm Aditya and today I bring you 3 terrifying haunted location stories. New stories. New week. New fear. In the last episode, episode 19, we explored creepypasta horror stories. If you missed it, the link is in the description, make sure to check it out. So, let's begin today's episode 20. If you are new here, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe before you go. Today, we will explore 3 haunted locations, all terrifying in their own way. If you love horror like this, then you've come to the right place, because only on Dynamic Dark will you experience creepypasta style and haunted location stories. For the best experience, use your earphones or headset, let the darkness and suspense surround you. The first story is The Whispering Forest. The second story is The Palace That Watches. The third story is The Forgotten Train Station. Let's begin today's first story, The Whispering Forest. Asterisk. The hikers entered the dense, fog-covered forest as night fell. The air was cold. Still. Unnaturally still. Every breath felt heavy, pressing against their chests. Shadows twisted between the trees, stretching longer than they should. Branches moved like grasping hands. Something unseen watched them, waiting. Their footsteps echoed louder than possible. Leaves rustled, but there was no wind. Eyes glimmered in the fog. Pale. White. Watching. They whispered to each other, barely audible. A laugh answered them, soft, mocking, coming from nowhere. The fog thickened, curling around their feet like fingers. A tree shifted. A face appeared in the bark, hollow eyes, broken mouth staring. The hikers froze. Then it was gone. Branches scraped their arms, cold. Footsteps echoed behind them, but the path behind was empty. Black shapes moved between the trunks. No legs. No faces. Just shadows drifting. The mist seemed alive, wrapping around their ankles, pulling, twisting, slowing them down. A faint glow appeared between the trees, like lanterns, but no one held them. Whispers surrounded them, dozens of voices, calling their names, taunting, laughing, crying. One hiker's flashlight flickered. In the brief glow, pale hands reached from the fog. They vanished when he blinked. Another shadow crouched, its hollow eyes fixed on them, waiting for a moment to strike. Branches bent unnaturally. Leaves shook without wind. From above, the moonlight caught glimpses of faces in the trees screaming silently. They tried to run, but every path led deeper, twisting, looping. The forest was a maze, a trap, alive and hungry. A cold, black mist rose from the ground, seeping into their lungs. They coughed, stumbled, felt invisible fingers brush their skin, tugging, pulling, mocking. Eyes glowed from every direction. Whispers grew louder, forming words. You cannot leave, not tonight, not ever. Pale figures emerged, black as shadows, twisting and writhing between the trunks. They floated, drifting toward the hikers, their shapes ever-changing, faces appearing and disappearing in the mist. The hikers huddled together, hearts hammering, breaths shallow. Every second stretched into eternity. The forest had them. Then, a voice clear, cold, unyielding. You are already mine. The fog swallowed them. Their screams echoed, then silence. Only the forest remained, waiting, watching. Faint whispers echoed between the trees, calling their names. The hikers spun around, hearts hammering. But the shadows moved on their own, twisting like black smoke, mimicking every step they took. The fog thickened, curling around their ankles, dragging, pulling. Branches snapped, but no wind blew. Pale, glowing eyes appeared between the trees, staring, unblinking. A soft laugh, distant, mocking, traveled through the mist. The hikers froze, a shiver ran down their spines. Every shadow stretched unnaturally, reaching, bending, twisting toward them. One hiker whispered, "Did you hear that?" Another shook his head, but the whispers grew louder. "You are not supposed to be here." Multiple voices now, overlapping, echoing, chanting, crying. Hikers tried to move, the forest twisted their path. Every step forward led them deeper, as if the forest itself was alive, reshaping. A black figure darted between the trees, no face, just darkness, following, observing. Branches scratched at their arms, fingers cold, intangible, but painfully real. The mist began to swirl faster, forming humanoid shapes. Ghostly faces emerged, screaming silently. Hollow eyes stared into theirs, reaching, twisting, whispering names over and over. One hiker dropped his flashlight, it rolled away, flickering. In the brief light, pale hands reached from the fog, clawing at their legs. Another shadow crouched, mouth opening impossibly wide, but silent, just void. They ran, stumbling, tripping, but the forest mocked them. Paths led them in circles. Black mist rose, crawling along the ground like serpents, wrapping around their feet, slowing them down. Whispers became words, cold, harsh, unrelenting. "You cannot leave, not tonight, not ever." Shapes floated from the fog, spirits, black as smoke, writhing, twisting. The hikers screamed, but sound didn't escape. Their breath turned to mist, freezing as cold hands brushed their skin. The fog thickened. Shadows converged. The whispers rose into screams, dozens of voices overlapping inside their minds. A final voice, clear, icy, unyielding. "Stay with us." The forest swallowed them. Silence fell. Only the fog remained, moving, waiting, watching. One hiker saw a figure in the distance, perfectly mirroring his movements. Every step he took, the figure followed. Every turn, the figure turned too. Panic surged. He ran. But every path led them deeper into the forest. Twisting, looping as if the trees themselves were alive. Shifting, closing in, trapping them. The others screamed, stumbled, flashlights flickering, casting long, dancing shadows. The figure stayed silent, black as smoke, hollow eyes glowing. Branches bent unnaturally, snagging clothes, tugging at hair. Mist curled around their feet, thick, choking, pulling them backward. Every attempt to run, slow. Every attempt to hide, futile. Whispers filled the forest, dozens of voices chanting their names, mocking, crying. Shapes emerged in the fog, faceless shadows, writhing, stretching toward the hikers. A hand reached from the mist, pale, cold, dripping darkness. The figure advanced, inch by inch, always mirroring, always watching. Trees seemed to lean, bending the path, guiding them toward the heart of the darkness. Hikers clutched each other, trembling. Their breaths visible, freezing in the icy fog. Eyes darted, every shadow moved on its own. Suddenly, the figure stepped closer. And another appeared behind it. And then dozens, all perfectly mirroring every terrified movement. A branch snapped, a scream echoed, but no one was there. The fog thickened, black shapes floated above, watching, waiting. The forest seemed alive, breathing, hungry. Every heartbeat felt loud, every whisper unbearable. The hikers tried to run, but their own shadows twisted, stretching, reaching, separating, pulling them toward the figure. The mist became a wall, swallowing sound, swallowing light. Pale hands, ghostly faces, hollow eyes crawling along every surface. Dragging, clawing, whispering. You belong here forever. One last glance, the figure perfectly mirrored every movement. And then the fog swallowed them. The forest returned to silence. Watching, waiting, hungry. Breathing grew heavy. The whispers grew louder, sinister, crawling under their skin. Eyes glowed from the black fog, watching, waiting. Shapes moved just out of reach, shifting, twisting, writhing between trees. Every branch, every shadow seemed alive. The forest itself was aware, hungry, feeding on their fear. The hikers clutched each other, stumbling, flashlights flickering. A scream cut through the fog, but no one was there. Footsteps echoed, behind, ahead, all around. But every direction led them deeper. The mist thickened, curling around their legs, pulling them down, slowing every step. A black figure appeared, hollow eyes blazing, mimicking every frantic move. Another shadow joined, then dozens more, floating, hovering, writhing. Branches bent unnaturally, snagging clothes, tugging at hair. The whispers became words, echoing in their minds. You cannot leave, not tonight, not ever. The fog moved like water, enveloping them, reaching into their very bodies. Hands, pale and smoky, dragged across the ground, clawing, grasping. Ghostly faces formed and dissolved, twisted mouths screaming silently, hollow eyes staring deep into their souls. The hikers ran, but the forest seemed to reshape around them. Twisting paths, looping trails, impossible to escape. Shadows stretched, mirrored, multiplied, each step trapped them further. A sudden figure appeared in front, just black void, smiling, no eyes. Whispers screamed directly into their ears, dozens of voices overlapping. Every heartbeat echoed, every breath frozen in icy fog. The forest's hunger grew, branches swiped, mist thickened, spirits floated. All surrounding, all closing in. Every path led to the center, the heart of darkness, where the shadows waited, patient, endless. The hikers screamed, bodies trembling, eyes darting. And in that moment, the fog surged, shapes lunged, reaching. Hands, faces, whispers, all converging, relentless. The forest was alive, hungry, aware, and it would not let them go. Hours or maybe minutes, no one could tell. The fog swallowed everything, twisting, curling, hiding paths, hiding shapes. The hikers ran, stumbled, fell, the forest reshaping around them. Branches grabbed at arms, mist calling around legs, slowing, dragging. The whispers had become screams, echoing from every direction. Eyes glowed in the shadows, following, judging, waiting. One by one, the hikers vanished. A hand reaching for a branch, gone. A scream cut short, gone. A shadow twisting around a figure vanished into black mist. Only one remained, trembling, heart hammering, breath frozen in icy fog. He turned, the forest silent, but the shadows were everywhere. Black smoke figures flickered between the trees, still watching, still patient. The fog thickened, curling like fingers, reaching, grasping, pulling. Every path led deeper, and yet he somehow emerged alone. Silent. Shaking. Eyes wide, staring at nothing, haunted. Behind him, faint whispers drifted. Next, next, next. Hollow voices promising more, feeding on fear. The forest had its secrets. Its shadows waited, patient, endless. And somewhere, the missing hikers were not gone, just taken, trapped in the black fog, forever mirroring, forever watching. The survivor fell to his knees, trembling, trying to scream, but nothing came. Every shadow seemed alive, writhing, whispering his name, mocking, omnipresent. The sun rose, weak, pale, fog clinging stubbornly. The forest returned to a deceptive calm. But the whispers lingered, drifting, echoing, waiting for the next soul to wander in. The forest stood silent, or so it seemed. Mist curled between the gnarled trees, moving like living fingers. Shadows shifted, twisting, writhing, whispering across the fog. Eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, watching, waiting, patient. The hiker who emerged trembled, heart pounding, mind reeling. But even as he stumbled away, the forest's presence clung to him. Cold, suffocating, omnipresent. The whispers, soft at first, then rising again. Next, next, next. Carried on the wind, echoing through trees, through the very bones of the earth. The missing hikers were gone, or trapped, or perhaps something worse. Faceless spirits lingered, floating silently above the forest floor. Their forms shifting, black smoke with glowing eyes, just at the edge of vision. Branches moved as if alive, bending to obscure the path, hiding secrets. The fog thickened, swallowing footprints, erasing all evidence. The forest was alive, aware, patient, hungry. Even sunlight could not pierce the dense canopy fully. Shadows lurked in every corner, writhing and stretching. Every rustle, every snap of a branch could be one of them, waiting, watching. The wind carried faint echoes of screams, distant yet piercing. Faint laughter, whispers in every language, all warning of the forest's hunger. No one who enters leaves unchanged. Some return, pale, trembling, haunted by unseen eyes. Others never return. And yet the forest waits. Patient, endless, shadows shifting, always ready. For the next wanderer, the next lost soul. The whispering forest remains, a place where darkness never ends. And the shadows never sleep. Today's the second story is The Palace That Watches. The abandoned palace loomed ahead, its silhouette dark against a blood-red sunset. Cracked walls, broken windows, and towering spires all seemed alive, watching. The air was heavy, unnaturally cold, carrying faint whispers that drifted from unseen corners. Shadows stretched along the crumbling corridors, moving just slightly, always in the corner of vision. As they approached, a low hum resonated from the palace walls, almost like breathing. The ground beneath their feet felt alive, shifting slightly, urging them to step faster or maybe to turn back. Black smoke-like figures flickered through broken windows, hovering silently. Their glowing eyes reflected 1,000 unspoken warnings, following every move. Inside the main gate, the grand hall yawned wide, dark, endless. The chandeliers swayed though no wind stirred. Faint tendrils of fog crept along the floor, reaching for ankles, curling around shoes, whispering names. Calling to the intruders, luring them further inside. Every hallway led to another hallway, mirrors showing more than reality. Shadows moved independently, black forms rising along walls, mimicking, mocking, watching. Faces appeared in cracked walls, hollow eyes staring, mouths forming silent screams. Then dissolving back into darkness, leaving only the echo of their terror. The explorers could feel it, something alive, something patient. The palace itself was aware, hungering. Every step was observed, every breath monitored. Every heartbeat echoed against the marble floors, amplifying fear, suffocating, thick, impossible to ignore. Above, the moonlight barely pierced the broken roof, casting airy silhouettes across the decaying halls. Black figures floated, paused, vanished, only to reappear somewhere unexpected. The air smelled of rust, damp wood, and decay, but beneath it something foul, unnatural. And somewhere, in the shadows, a presence waited. Watching. Learning. Remembering. Every movement, every whisper, recorded in the dark memory of the palace. The wind howled through the broken windows, carrying faint laughter and faint screams. It promised nothing would leave unchanged, that the palace never forgot. And that whoever dared to enter would be part of its walls, its shadows, forever. Inside the grand hall, the explorers stepped cautiously, every footfall echoing against the marble floor. The hall was lined with portraits, dozens, maybe hundreds, all watching. At first, the faces seemed still, quite lifeless. But then, slowly, imperceptibly, the eyes shifted, tracking their every movement. The mouths twisted into faint, sinister smiles, then disappeared, only to return when no one was looking. Shadows moved along the walls, creeping like living smoke. Stretching, writhing, merging with the corners, forming shapes that were almost human, but not. Figures flickered in and out of sight, black forms, with hollow eyes, following, observing, learning. A cold draft swept through the hall, carrying faint whispers, unintelligible words, names perhaps, or threats. The portrait's eyes seemed to glow faintly in the darkness, reflecting the terror in the explorers' faces. Each step forward was measured, cautious, the sense of being watched pressing down like a physical weight. The chandeliers above swayed slightly, though no wind moved, shadows danced in their flickering light. Smoke-like tendrils drifted from the corners of the hall, curling along the floor, brushing the explorers' feet, pulling at their clothes, cold and demanding. As they passed one particular portrait, a figure seemed to step forward, a dark, shadowy presence emerging from the canvas itself. Its eyes, hollow, void-like, pierced their souls. The walls seemed to close in narrowing corridors, stretching ceilings disorienting, trapping. Whispers rose into murmurs, then distant laughter echoing, omnipresent. The portraits shifted slightly, the faces morphing, eyes flickering like candlelight, black smoke curling around frames. It was alive, the palace itself, recording, judging, aware of their fear. The explorers tried to step back, but the shadows moved faster than thought. Every path seemed blocked, every exit hidden behind the living darkness. A chill ran down their spines, a figure flickered near the ceiling, gone in an instant, replaced by another in the corner. The whispers continued, echoing endlessly. Names, warnings, faint cries, calling from the paintings, from the walls, from the air itself. Black ghostly figures seemed to pulse in rhythm with the whispers, calling around pillars, curling along the arches, waiting, patient. By the time they reached the end of the hall, every portrait had turned toward them, eyes unblinking. The explorers felt themselves trapped, surrounded, swallowed by the palace's watching gaze. And somewhere, in the deepest shadows, the palace remembered every step, every breath, waiting for the next intruders to trespass. In the deepest part of the palace, they entered the throne room. The ceiling stretched high above, shadowed and cracked, chandeliers swaying though no wind stirred. At the center, an ancient throne loomed, blackened and gnarled, carved with faces that seemed to scream silently. A dark silhouette sat there, motionless at first. But as the explorers stepped closer, it moved. Not like a human, but mimicking their every movement from the hallway. Every twitch, every glance, every breath, copied by that unseen presence. Whispers filled the room, low, urgent, twisting around the pillars. They called names, they warned, they promised eternal watchfulness. The air grew heavy, thick with unseen eyes. Shadows stretched from the throne, crawling along the floor, rising up the walls, black smoke curling into twisted faces. The explorers felt their steps slow, the floor beneath them seemed to pulse alive. Every reflective surface, mirrors, shards of broken glass, polished floors showed more than their reflections. Figures flickered behind them, just beyond vision, glimpses of pale hands, hollow eyes, contorted mouths, watching. A cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing faint candles, leaving them in near total darkness. The throne's shadow seemed to breathe, rising and falling, moving closer without moving at all. The whispers intensified, layering, overlapping, chanting, crying, laughing. It was as if the palace itself was alive, feeding off their fear, recording their every motion. One explorer reached toward the throne, hand trembling. The silhouette mirrored him perfectly, then leaned closer. Whispers turned into words. "You belong here forever." The walls groaned, the ceiling trembled, shadows surged forward. The explorers tried to run, but the corridors behind them shifted, twisting into new shapes, trapping them in a maze of darkness. The throne's presence followed, patient, eternal, watching. Even when they thought they had escaped, the whispers clung to their ears, promising that the palace remembered every step and every trespasser would return. By the time they stumbled back into the hallway, gasping, hearts pounding, the throne seemed to fade into the shadows. But in the deepest corners, in the black smoke curling along the floor, it waited, watching, silent, patient. Every corner seemed alive. Cold drafts snaked along the cracked marble floors, carrying whispers that made the hairs on their necks stand on end. Shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting into shapes that almost resembled faces, laughing, screaming, or silently watching. The air felt thick, as if the palace itself were breathing, inhaling their fear, exhaling darkness. Every step they took echoed endlessly in the grand hall, bouncing off walls that seemed to shift and stretch with each heartbeat. A sudden flicker of candlelight revealed a shadow moving where none should exist, silent, black, with glowing eyes that stared from the corners. The portraits on the walls weren't still anymore. Their faces twisted slowly, eyes following every hesitant step. Lips moved, whispering threats the intruders couldn't understand, yet felt deep in their bones. The floorboards groaned underfoot, though no one had stepped there. A cold, invisible hand seemed to brush past their arms, sending shivers down their spines. The air vibrated with low murmurs, rising and falling like 1,000 voices calling out names that weren't spoken. It became impossible to tell which way was forward. Every hallway stretched longer, every doorway led deeper into the darkness. The palace wasn't just abandoned, it was alive, hungry, aware, and it had noticed them. The intruders froze. Every step they took echoed unnaturally through the empty halls. Shadows flickered along the walls, forming shapes that weren't their own. Behind every doorway, dark figures shifted and disappeared before they could look closer. Whispers slithered through the air, cold and hungry, calling out names that shouldn't exist. The portraits seemed to lean, their eyes glowing faintly, following each movement. The floorboards creaked, but no one was there to step on them. Something unseen was tracking their fear, saving it. Panic bubbled as the intruders realized the truth. They were never alone. The palace itself was alive, watching, and it would not let them leave unmarked. Shapes materialized and vanished around them, the walls breathing, closing in, promising that the darkness would follow them always. The palace loomed silent yet alive. Shadows twisted unnaturally along the walls, forming faces that weren't human. Cold drafts slithered through corridors, carrying whispers that called names no one had spoken. Faint figures flickered at the edges of vision, lingering in doorways, vanishing when looked at directly. The air thickened, heavy with dread, and the walls seemed to pulse, breathing, remembering. Floorboards creaked without footsteps. Portraits leaned slightly, their eyes glowing faintly, watching, judging, waiting. Every heartbeat echoed unnaturally, matching the rhythm of something unseen stalking them. Today's final story is The Forgotten Train Station. The old train station stood abandoned, bathed in pale moonlight. Rusted tracks stretched endlessly into darkness, disappearing where the night swallowed everything. Every step the hiker took echoed unnaturally across the empty platform, bouncing off walls that seemed closer than they should be. Shadows twisted where no one should be, curling and stretching along the broken benches and pillars. Faint, flickering shapes hovered at the edges of vision, vanishing when looked at directly. Cold drafts carried whispers, names no one had ever spoken, slithering across the hiker's skin like icy fingers. An eerie stillness pressed down, as if the station itself were alive, watching, waiting. Each heartbeat felt too loud, each breath too heavy. Somewhere in the darkness, a shape moved silently, unseen but present, following every cautious step. The air was thick, tainted with a sense of something ancient, patient, and hungry. Whispers drifted across the empty platform, soft at first, almost gentle. But then they grew, twisting into voices that called names no one had spoken, names that crawled under the skin. Shadows flickered between the broken pillars, stretching impossibly long, writhing like black smoke. Every flicker seemed to mimic the movements of anyone who dared step closer. The station itself felt alive, breathing, watching, calculating. A cold wind slithered across the platform, carrying murmurs that circled around the intruders. The echoes weren't just sound, they were warnings, pulling at their thoughts, whispering fears they didn't know they had. The flickering shapes grew bolder, pausing at the corners of vision, then vanishing when looked at directly. Eyes seemed to glow faintly in the darkness, staring from places that shouldn't even exist. Every heartbeat of the intruders felt magnified, synchronized with the rhythm of the whispers. The shadows weren't just following, they were waiting, learning, marking them for something unseen, something that belonged to the station itself. The silence broke not with sound, but with vibration. The ground trembled faintly as an old train crept onto the platform. No wheels screeched. No engine roared. It moved like a shadow, gliding across the tracks as if time itself carried it forward. Its windows were pitch black, reflecting only the pale moonlight. But then faint outlines appeared. Ghostly faces, pale and hollow, pressed against the glass. Their eyes glowed dimly, empty and endless, yet they watched, unblinking. The figures raised their hands slowly, beckoning, silent, patient. Their mouths opened, but no sound came, only the echo of whispers in the cold night air. It wasn't an invitation. It was a trap, a promise of a ride no living soul could ever return from. The hiker's breath came ragged, each step pounding against the rusted tracks. The night swallowed every sound, yet behind him something followed. Shadows stretched impossibly long, twisting like living serpents, pulling closer with every second. His flashlight flickered, beams cutting through the fog, but the darkness moved faster. From every corner, unseen hands reached, grasping at his arms, his legs, brushing against his skin with icy fingers that left no mark, but stole his strength. The whispers grew louder now, no longer faint, but a chorus. Screaming, crying, chanting his name, filling the air until it felt like his skull would split. The forest beyond the tracks swayed, though there was no wind, and black figures emerged, pacing him stride for stride. No matter how fast he ran, the shadows ran faster. The tracks stretched endlessly, curving into a void where no light lived. His lungs burned, his chest tight, but still he ran, knowing deep inside that the thing chasing him wasn't behind, it was everywhere. The hiker finally leapt onto the ghostly train, his breath ragged, heart pounding. For a moment, he thought he had escaped. But as the train sped into the night, its windows revealed nothing. No seats. No walls. Only endless, consuming darkness. The platform behind dissolved into mist, fading as if it had never existed. Yet faint laughter lingered, sharp, cold, echoing across the fog. Shapes drifted along the tracks, silent, faceless figures swaying like shadows in water. Their eyes glowed faintly, watching, waiting. The hiker realized too late he had not escaped. He had stepped deeper into their world. And now there was no way back. The forgotten train station waits, silent but never empty. Its rusted tracks echo with footsteps that no living soul should hear. The air is heavy with whispers, the laughter of those who never return. Every night, the train arrives, soundless, endless, filled with faces pressed against the glass, begging, luring, calling. But once you step aboard, there is no destination. Only the ride. Only the shadows. They say the lost never leave, their voices carried in the fog, their eyes flickering in the dark corners of the platform. And if you ever find yourself here, under the pale moonlight, with silence too heavy to bear, remember this, the station is always watching. The forgotten train station waits, where the lost ride forever, and the shadows never sleep. That was the end of episode 20 of Dynamic Dark. If you enjoyed these terrifying stories, make sure to comment below which story scared you the most. The best comment will be pinned by me, Aditya. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and family. Or you can suggest a creepypasta or international horror topic in the comments. The suggestion with the most likes will be featured in the next episode. Until then, keep listening to terrifying stories, because we'll be back soon with episode 21. And in the next episode, we'll bring you creepypasta horror stories. And yes, that will be the English episode. Stay tuned and continue watching the horror episodes of Dynamic Dark. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss notifications for new horror episodes. With new fears, new darkness, and new secrets. Join the Dynamic Dark family and become a part of the journey with 3 brand new stories.